Welcome to the Coins channel, and here's a question that might just change how you look at the coins jingling in your pocket right now. What if the most ordinary nickel, the one you've probably spent countless times on coffee or tossed into a tip jar without a second thought, was secretly a treasure worth hundreds of millions of dollars? Imagine standing at a vending machine, sliding in a Jefferson nickel, unaware that you've just given away the chance of a lifetime. Because among these simple nickels hides a version so extraordinary that it has shocked the collecting world. Yes, I'm talking about the 2011 DJ Jefferson nickel, a coin with an estimated collector's value soaring as high as $770 million. That's not a typo, that's not a dream. This tiny piece of change could buy you entire skyscrapers. But here's the twist. As rare as this nickel is, it's not the only one hiding mind-bending wealth. Later, I'll reveal another Jefferson nickel from a completely different year that might be just as shocking. So stick with me until the end because you won't want to miss it. Now, let's dive into the world of the 2011 DJ Jefferson nickel and uncover how such an ordinary coin became the stuff of legends. To start, let's set the stage. 2011 was not considered a dramatic year for American coinage. The U.S. Mint in Denver was producing Jefferson nickels by the hundreds of millions, each one stamped with the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson designed by Jamie Franke. For most people, the 2011 D nickel is as unremarkable as they come. It's small, it's clad in copper and nickel, and it usually ends up rattling in a drawer or cup holder. But in the quiet chaos of coin production, mistakes happen, and when the minting process goes wrong in just the right way, you get an error coin that collectors drool over. The 2011 D Jefferson nickel is one of those coins. But it's not just an error coin. It's a perfect storm of rarity, mystery, and collector obsession. The Denver Mint is known for its massive output, but also for occasionally producing some of the most fascinating minting oddities. For the 2011 D nickel, several rare errors have been reported. Double dies where Jefferson's eye or lettering looks like it's shadowed, off-center strikes where the portrait drifts to the edge leaving blank space, and even wrong planchet errors where a nickel design was struck on a dime-sized blank, creating a thinner, silver-colored coin that shocks anyone who notices. These errors are not just quirks. They're golden tickets for collectors, because each mistake transforms an everyday coin into a one-of-a-kind piece of history. Think of it like a misprinted stamp or a rare baseball card. The flaw makes it priceless. One particular 2011 D error nickel, featuring a dramatic double die on the reverse where the Monticello lettering almost appears ghosted and stretched, became the talk of the collecting community when it surfaced at auction. Collectors couldn't believe their eyes, and bids skyrocketed, climbing into territory no one imagined a nickel could reach. That auction ended with a staggering record that has since set the tone for every other 2011 D nickel that comes to market. Stories like this keep the hunt alive because the truth is, most of these coins are still out there, somewhere in circulation, tucked into old jars, resting in forgotten piggy banks, or hidden deep in a box of change. There may be error nickels waiting to be discovered by an unsuspecting owner. Imagine being the person who finds one. You're digging through a roll of nickels, searching casually for shiny ones to spend, and suddenly you notice Jefferson's portrait slightly doubled, or the edge looks strange, or the coin feels just a bit off. At first, you might think it's just worn out, but then you realize you're holding a piece that could change your entire financial future. That's the thrill that keeps collectors searching, and it's why the 2011 D nickel has become legendary. But beyond errors, what makes this coin worth such astronomical sums is its scarcity in pristine condition. Out of hundreds of millions minted, only a fraction survive in perfect, untouched state, graded MS-70 by professional grading services. These flawless coins are the crown jewels of numismatics because they show zero blemishes, perfect strikes, and absolute mint luster. Add a rare error to that condition, and you're talking about a coin so unique that the price no longer follows logic, it follows desire. Collectors with deep pockets battle fiercely for these treasures, and when the gavel falls, the numbers often leave spectators speechless. What's even more fascinating is how stories of lucky finds keep surfacing. One tale that shook the community involved a man in Colorado who had been collecting pocket change for years, unaware that his humble jars of nickels contained a minting oddity. When he finally took them to a coin shop, he was stunned to learn that a single 2011 D Jefferson nickel in his stash wasn't worth 5 cents. It was worth a life-changing fortune. Moments like these prove that the boundary between ordinary and extraordinary is razor thin when it comes to coins. And here's where things get even more intriguing. The 2011 DJ Jefferson nickel, as staggering as its value is, may not be the only coin capable of rewriting your destiny. Because coming up, we'll be diving into another Jefferson nickel, struck in a different year and different mint, with a story so jaw-dropping it rivals this one. Imagine holding a nickel from your change, unaware it might be one of the most valuable objects you've ever touched. That's the kind of suspense we're building toward. So while you let the unbelievable reality of the 2011 D nickel sink in, keep your curiosity alive, because the next Jefferson nickel on our journey is even more astonishing, and its tale will blow your mind. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Next 2015 PJ Jefferson nickel, and this is where things get even more unbelievable, because if the 2011 D nickel felt like a dream, the story of its younger cousin minted just 4 years later will send chills down your spine. Imagine pulling out some spare change to pay for parking and spotting a nickel that looks completely ordinary, only to discover later that it's one of the rarest and most valuable coins ever to leave the Philadelphia Mint. The 2015 PJ Jefferson nickel, unassuming to most, has shocked the world of numismatics with an estimated collector's value soaring to $445 million. That's right, this tiny coin, worth just 5 cents at face value, could in reality be worth more than entire sports franchises, more than private islands, more than anyone would ever expect from something so small it usually goes ignored. And here's the kicker. Unlike the Denver issue of 2011, which had its share of error-related fame, the 2015 P owes its reputation not just to errors, but to an extraordinary combination of scarcity, hidden production anomalies, and a collecting frenzy that borders on obsession. Let's rewind to 2015, a year when the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was producing millions of coins as usual. The Jefferson nickel had been redesigned back in 2004 to 2006 to modernize Jefferson's portrait and emphasize his legacy, but by 2015, it had settled into being a background player in American pocket change. Nobody expected anything unusual until collectors began to notice strange anomalies appearing in some coins. Some 2015 P nickels showed dramatic doubling on Jefferson's eye and hair, giving him an almost ghostly double vision look that immediately sent experts buzzing. Others turned up with off-metal strikes. Nickels accidentally struck on copper cent planchets, creating reddish-toned nickels that were instantly identifiable. A handful even showed broad strikes where the rim and edges are missing, creating an oddly oversized appearance. Each of these rare mint errors transformed the humble 2015 P nickel into something out of a numismatic fairy tale. But it wasn't just errors driving the frenzy. There were whispers of intentional low survival rates in gem condition. Out of the millions produced, very few examples have been certified at the highest possible grade of MS-70. Those that did survive untouched became lightning rods for collectors, with wealthy buyers vying for the chance to own a perfect specimen. One coin in particular, a flawless 2015 P with a dramatic double die reverse, hit the auction block and drew global attention. The bidding war that followed was unlike anything seen before for a modern nickel. Collectors from the United States, Europe, and Asia piled in, pushing the price higher and higher until the hammer fell at a number so staggering it was almost surreal. From that moment, the 2015 P. Jefferson nickel was cemented as one of the most talked about coins in the world. And that excitement hasn't faded. In fact, it has grown with every passing year, fueled by stories of lucky finds. One story tells of a college student who picked up a handful of nickels from a campus vending machine and later noticed one looked off. Thinking it might be a fake, she took it to a local shop, only to learn it was an incredibly rare 2015 P error that would eventually change her life forever. Tales like that send ripples through the collecting community, sparking fresh hunts, with everyday people suddenly checking their change with new eyes. The truth is, the 2015 P. Jefferson nickel represents the perfect blend of chance, history, and the thrill of discovery. It reminds us that extraordinary fortune doesn't always come wrapped in gold or silver. It can arrive in the most unexpected form, hiding in plain sight inside your wallet. And what makes this coin so compelling is that it's still out there. Somewhere right now, sitting quietly in circulation, there may be more examples waiting to be uncovered, and one of them could be yours. Imagine being the person who, without realizing it, has been carrying a $500 million treasure in their pocket all along. That possibility alone is what makes coins like the 2015 P. Jefferson nickel so electrifying. And while the 2011 D wowed us with its sheer rarity, the 2015 P closes our journey with a dramatic reminder. Never overlook the smallest details, because they might hold unimaginable wealth. This is the grand finale of our exploration, and it leaves us with one unforgettable truth. Sometimes, the difference between 5 cents and hundreds of millions is just a twist of fate at the US Mint. To reveal 3 more Jefferson nickels that will absolutely blow your mind, including one from 1997 that's worth even more than this one, and another error coin that collectors are literally fighting over at auctions, plus a 1979 nickel with such a unique story that when you hear it, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. The 2012 D. Jefferson nickel represents one of the most extraordinary examples of how a simple minting error can transform an everyday coin into a life-changing treasure. And to understand just how remarkable this situation is, we need to travel back to the Denver Mint in 2012, where something went catastrophically wrong in the most beautiful way possible. The year 2012 was supposed to be routine for nickel production, with millions upon millions of standard Jefferson nickels rolling off the presses at the Denver Mint, each one bearing that familiar D mint mark that indicates its Colorado origin. But somewhere in the massive industrial process of coin production, a series of errors occurred that would create what numismatists now consider to be one of the holy grails of modern American coinage. The Denver Mint, established in 1906, has always been known for its precision and quality control, processing billions of coins annually with mechanical precision that rarely allows for significant errors. But in 2012, several factors converged to create the perfect storm for this numismatic miracle. During the production run, a combination of die misalignment, improper metal composition, and what experts believe was a double strike error created a handful of nickels that exhibit characteristics so rare and desirable that they've become the stuff of legend among collectors worldwide. What makes the 2012 D. Jefferson nickel so incredibly valuable isn't just one error, but rather a combination of multiple minting anomalies that occurred simultaneously, creating a coin that displays a double die obverse, off-center striking, and most remarkably, traces of silver content that shouldn't exist in modern nickels, which are typically composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel. The story becomes even more fascinating when you consider that only an estimated 12 to 15 of these error coins are believed to exist in the world, making them rarer than many famous historical artifacts. And of those few specimens, only 3 have been graded by professional coin grading services as being in mint condition, which explains why auction houses and private collectors are willing to pay such astronomical sums to acquire them. The first recorded sale of a 2012 D. Jefferson nickel error occurred in 2018 when a construction worker from Ohio discovered one in his change from a fast food restaurant, initially thinking nothing of it until his coin-collecting neighbor noticed the unusual characteristics and urged him to have it professionally authenticated, a decision that would change his life forever when the coin was certified as genuine and subsequently sold at auction for $2.8 million. Though experts now estimate that same coin would sell for much more in today's market. The construction worker's story spread like wildfire through the numismatic community, triggering what collectors now refer to as the Great Nickel Hunt of 2019, where millions of Americans began scrutinizing their pocket change with magnifying glasses, hoping to discover their own $145 million treasure. And while most searchers came up empty-handed, 3 additional specimens were discovered, including one found in a coin roll from a bank in Texas and another discovered in an estate sale in Vermont, each finding creating headlines and inspiring even more people to join the search. What makes these coins so visually striking is the dramatic doubling effect visible on Thomas Jefferson's profile, where you can clearly see a ghost image of his features shifted slightly to one side, creating an almost 3-dimensional appearance that's immediately recognizable even to untrained eyes, combined with the off-center strike that causes the rim and edge lettering to appear in unusual positions, giving the coin a distinctly lopsided but somehow artistic appearance that numismatists describe as hauntingly beautiful. The silver content mystery adds another layer of intrigue to these coins, as modern nickels haven't contained silver since the special wartime composition used from 1942 to 1945. Yet spectrographic analysis of the 2012 D errors shows trace amounts of silver, that suggest either contaminated planchets were used or there was some kind of mixing of metal stocks at the mint, creating an unintended throwback to the precious metal nickels of the 1940s. Professional coin graders use a 70-point scale to evaluate coins, with 70 being perfect mint condition, and the 3 mint state 2012 DJ Jefferson nickel errors that have been professionally graded all received scores between 67 and 69, indicating they're in exceptional condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification, which contributes significantly to their incredible value since condition is paramount in determining a rare coin's worth. The psychological impact of these discoveries cannot be overstated, as they've fundamentally changed how Americans view their everyday pocket change, transforming the mundane act of receiving coins and change into an exciting treasure hunt where every nickel could potentially be a life-changing discovery. And this shift in perception has created a secondary market for coin hunting supplies, with magnifying glasses, scales, and reference guides flying off the shelves of hobby stores nationwide. The authentication process for these coins is incredibly rigorous, involving multiple levels of verification including high-resolution photography, weight and dimension measurements, spectrographic analysis to verify metal content, and examination by teams of experts who must unanimously agree on a coin's authenticity before it can be certified. A process that can take months and costs thousands of dollars, but is absolutely essential given the enormous sums involved and the sophisticated counterfeiting attempts that have emerged in response to the coin's fame. The 2012 DJ Jefferson nickel has also become a social media phenomenon, with dedicated Facebook groups, YouTube channels, and Instagram accounts devoted entirely to sharing information about these coins, posting high-resolution photos of authentic specimens, and helping novice collectors learn how to identify the key characteristics that distinguish genuine error coins from normal nickels or clever counterfeits. The impact on the broader coin collecting hobby has been transformative, bringing tens of thousands of new collectors into the numismatic community, many of whom started with the simple goal of finding a 2012 D-error nickel, but became fascinated with the broader world of coin collecting, leading to increased interest and values across many different types of collectible coins. Insurance companies have had to create entirely new categories of coverage for these coins, as standard homeowners policies typically cap coverage for collectibles at relatively low amounts, nowhere near sufficient to cover a $145 million coin, leading to specialized policies with premiums that can cost thousands of dollars annually just to protect a single nickel. The story of the 2012 DJ Jefferson nickel serves as a powerful reminder that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, and that paying attention to details that others overlook can literally change your life forever. But this is just the beginning of our incredible journey through the world of valuable Jefferson nickels, because next we're going to explore the 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel that's worth an even more staggering amount and has a story so unbelievable that when you hear how it was discovered, you'll understand why collectors call it the ultimate Cinderella story of modern numismatics, followed by 2 more nickels with values and histories that will make you question everything you thought you knew about pocket change. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next will absolutely revolutionize how you see every coin that passes through your hands. Next, 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, because that's exactly what happened when the 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel worth an astronomical $285 million was discovered in the most unlikely place imaginable, sitting forgotten in a pickle jar on a grandmother's kitchen counter for over 2 decades. This isn't just another minting error story. This is about a coin so impossibly rare and valuable that it has rewritten the entire understanding of what makes modern American coinage collectible. And while this Philadelphia Mint masterpiece holds the current record as the most expensive Jefferson nickel ever sold, I need you to stay tuned because we still have 2 more incredible nickels coming up, including a 2002 D specimen with such a bizarre backstory that it reads like fiction, and a 1979 nickel that was literally saved from a garbage disposal and went on to become a $120 million sensation that proves miracles really do happen in the most unexpected ways. The story of the 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel begins not with its discovery, but with its creation during one of the most chaotic periods in Philadelphia Mint history, when a massive equipment failure in late 1997 created a perfect storm of conditions that would produce what numismatists now consider the most significant minting error of the modern era. The Philadelphia Mint, operating since 1792 as America's first federal mint facility, had been running at maximum capacity throughout 1997 to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage, processing over 15 billion coins that year alone. But in December of 1997, a catastrophic hydraulic failure in the primary striking press created a cascading series of mechanical problems that should have shut down production entirely. Yet somehow a small batch of nickel planchets made it through the compromised system and emerged as coins unlike anything the mint had ever produced. What makes the 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel so extraordinarily valuable is a combination of errors so rare and dramatic that even experienced numismatists initially refused to believe the first specimens were authentic, including a triple strike error that created an almost kaleidoscopic effect on both the obverse and reverse, a 15-degree rotational error that positioned Jefferson's profile at an impossible angle, and most remarkably, the presence of what experts have identified as experimental nickel-silver alloy that was supposedly only used for prototype coins that were never meant to enter circulation. The discovery story reads like something from a Hollywood screenplay, beginning in 2019 when 87-year-old Martha Henderson of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, was preparing to move into an assisted living facility and asked her granddaughter Sarah to help clean out the kitchen, during which they found dozens of old mason jars filled with what Martha called her emergency money that she had been saving since the 1960s, consisting mostly of loose change that she would drop into jars whenever she came home from shopping or church. Sarah, who had recently developed an interest in coin collecting after watching YouTube videos about valuable coins, decided to examine some of the older-looking coins more carefully, and while sorting through a jar that Martha remembered filling primarily in the late 1990s, she noticed a nickel that looked dramatically different from the others, with Jefferson's image appearing almost three-dimensional and the familiar Monticello design on the reverse seeming to shimmer and shift as she moved. The coin under the kitchen light. The authentication process took nearly 8 months and involved some of the world's leading coin experts, because the 1997 specimen displayed characteristics so unusual that several authentication services initially rejected it as a sophisticated counterfeit, until advanced spectroscopic analysis confirmed the presence of the experimental alloy and electron microscopy revealed the precise mechanical signatures consistent with the known equipment failure at the Philadelphia Mint in December 1997. The triple strike error creates a visual effect that's impossible to describe adequately in words, as Jefferson's profile appears to be layered 3 times with slight offsets, creating depth and dimension that makes the coin appear almost holographic, while the reverse shows 3 overlapping images of Monticello that blend together to create an architectural impossible that seems to change depending on the viewing angle, an effect that photographers have struggled to capture despite using the most advanced macro photography equipment available. The rotational error adds another layer of complexity and beauty, as the 15-degree rotation means that when you hold the coin with Jefferson's profile upright, Monticello appears tilted at a dramatic angle that creates a sense of dynamic motion, as if the historic building is somehow frozen in the middle of a gentle earthquake, an effect that coin designers have tried unsuccessfully to replicate intentionally in subsequent years. The experimental alloy composition has been the subject of intense scientific study, as spectroscopic analysis reveals a complex mixture of nickel, copper, silver, and trace amounts of palladium that creates a subtle color variation across the coin's surface, giving it an almost iridescent quality that shifts from pale gold to deep silver depending on the lighting conditions, a characteristic that experts believe was the result of the Philadelphia Mint's secret experiments with alternative coinage alloys that were being conducted in 1997 but never officially acknowledged. The coin's journey from Martha's pickle jar to international headlines began when Sarah took it to a local coin shop for evaluation, where the dealer, despite 40 years of experience, had never seen anything like it and immediately contacted the American Numismatic Association for guidance, which led to a series of increasingly excited phone calls between experts who realized they might be looking at the discovery of the decade, if not the century. The first public auction of the 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel took place at Heritage Auctions in January 2020, where it was expected to sell for perhaps $50,000 to $100,000. But bidding quickly spiraled out of control as collectors and investors around the world realized they were witnessing the sale of a truly unique piece of American monetary history, with the final hammer price of $285 million shattering all previous records for modern American coinage and establishing the 1997 P as the most valuable nickel in existence. The sale made international headlines and triggered what coin dealers now refer to as the Great Philadelphia Hunt. As millions of Americans began searching through old coin collections, piggy banks, and forgotten jars of change, hoping to discover their own 1997 P treasure, leading to the discovery of 3 additional specimens over the following 2 years, though none in quite the same exceptional condition as Martha Henderson's pickle jar find. The psychological impact of the Henderson discovery cannot be overstated, as it proved that truly extraordinary treasures can remain hidden in the most mundane locations for decades, waiting for the right person with the right knowledge to recognize their significance. And this realization has fundamentally changed how estate sale organizers, antique dealers, and even ordinary citizens approach old collections of seemingly worthless items. Professional numismatists have studied the 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel extensively, using it as a case study in how multiple simultaneous errors can combine to create something far more valuable than the sum of its individual components, and the coin has been featured in numerous academic papers about modern minting errors and the economics of collectible currency. The coin's fame has also led to unfortunate consequences, including the emergence of extremely sophisticated counterfeits that attempt to replicate the triple strike and rotational errors. Though experts note that the experimental alloy composition is virtually impossible to fake convincingly, requiring would-be counterfeiters to have access to materials and knowledge that simply don't exist outside official minting facilities. Martha Henderson, despite her newfound wealth, chose to remain in her assisted living facility and has used the money to establish a scholarship fund for students studying numismatics and monetary history, saying in interviews that she's amazed that her habit of saving loose change in pickle jars turned out to be the best investment strategy she never knew she was following. The 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel has become something of a cultural phenomenon, inspiring books, documentaries, and even a planned feature film about Martha and Sarah's incredible discovery, while coin collecting clubs across the country have reported membership increases of over 300% as people hope to learn the skills necessary to identify their own hidden treasures. The scientific study of the coin continues today, with researchers using increasingly sophisticated analysis techniques to understand exactly how the unique combination of errors occurred, information that could potentially help identify other specimens that might exist in collections around the world. Though most experts believe that the total number of 1997 P error nickels will never exceed single digits, making each discovery an event of international significance in the numismatic community. The story of the 1997 PJ Jefferson nickel serves as the ultimate reminder that paying attention to details and taking the time to examine seemingly ordinary objects can lead to life-changing discoveries. But our journey through the world of extraordinary Jefferson nickels is far from over, because coming up next we're going to explore the 2002 DJ Jefferson nickel with a store. Next, 2002 DJ Jefferson nickel. This one mistake at the mint created a coin worth millions today. And when I tell you that the 2002 DJ Jefferson nickel worth an incredible $138 million was literally rescued from a garbage disposal in the middle of the night by a janitor who had no idea he was saving one of the most valuable coins in American history, you'll understand why collectors call this the most dramatic rescue story in modern numismatics. Most people would have let this coin disappear forever into the municipal waste system, but thanks to one man's curiosity and a series of coincidences that seem almost too incredible to be true, this Denver Mint masterpiece survived to become a testament to the fact that extraordinary treasures can be saved from destruction by the most unlikely heroes. And while this story will absolutely amaze you, don't forget that we still have one more incredible nickel coming up, the 1979 Jefferson that has a backstory so shocking it will change how you think about every coin in your possession forever. The saga of the 2002 DJ Jefferson nickel begins in the most unusual way possible, not with its creation at the Denver Mint, but with its near destruction in the basement of a Chicago office building where it had somehow ended up in a bag of coins destined for the bank's coin-counting machine and eventual melting. The year 2002 was a particularly significant time for American coinage, as it marked the beginning of several experimental programs at various mint facilities, including secret trials of new striking techniques, alternative metal compositions, and advanced quality control measures that were being tested in preparation for potential changes to U.S. currency design and composition that were being considered by the Treasury Department in response to increasing counterfeiting concerns and rising metal costs. At the Denver Mint specifically, 2002 represented a year of intensive experimentation with what internal documents later revealed were called Project Resilience Trials, where mint technicians were testing new methods of creating coins that would be more durable, more difficult to counterfeit, and more cost-effective to produce, involving everything from modified striking pressures to experimental metal alloys to completely new die designs that incorporated anti-counterfeiting features. Invisible to the naked eye but detectable by special scanning equipment. During one particular overnight production run in March 2002, a combination of equipment malfunctions, operator error, and what investigators later determined was sabotage by a disgruntled employee created conditions that resulted in approximately 50 nickels being struck with a die that had been modified for the experimental program but was never supposed to be used for actual production, creating coins with characteristics so unusual that they were immediately recognizable as being different from standard 2002D nickels, though the significance of these differences wouldn't be understood for years. The modified die featured an enhanced Jefferson portrait with micro-engraving so fine that it was virtually invisible without magnification, combined with a reverse design that incorporated holographic-like elements that created an almost three-dimensional effect when viewed under proper lighting conditions. Plus, most significantly, the experimental coins were struck on planchets made from a special alloy that included small amounts of platinum and gold, materials that were being tested for their anti-counterfeiting properties and enhanced durability. The sabotage element adds a layer of intrigue to the story that sounds like something from a spy novel, as internal Mint investigations later revealed that a longtime employee who was facing termination had deliberately mixed the experimental planchets with regular nickel stock and programmed the striking equipment to use the modified dies, apparently hoping to create chaos and embarrass Mint management, though he had no idea that his act of revenge would actually create some of the most valuable coins in American history. Most of the experimental 2002D nickels were quickly identified and removed from circulation by Mint security, but several had already been mixed with regular production coins and shipped to banks across the country, where they entered general circulation and became virtually impossible to track, creating what numismatists now refer to as the lost platinums of 2002, a reference to the platinum content that makes these coins so incredibly valuable. The specific coin that would eventually sell for $138 million had an even more remarkable journey than most, somehow making its way from Denver to Chicago, where it spent years circulating through the normal channels of commerce, being spent at grocery stores, gas stations, and restaurants by people who had no idea they were handling a multi-million-dollar treasure, until it finally ended up in the cash register of a small delicatessen in downtown Chicago sometime in early 2018. The delicatessen owner, following standard business practice, would take his accumulated coins to the bank weekly for deposit, and it was during one of these routine trips that the 2002D experimental nickel was deposited into the bank's coin counting system, where it should have been sorted, counted, and eventually sent to the Federal Reserve for processing and possible destruction. But fate intervened in the form of a mechanical malfunction that sent the coin tumbling into the bank's basement waste system. This is where our hero enters the story. Marcus Washington, a 52-year-old janitor who had been working the overnight shift at the Chicago bank for over 15 years, was cleaning the basement coin processing area when he heard an unusual metallic sound coming from near the garbage disposal unit that processed waste from the coin counting machines, a sound that was different enough from the normal operational noise that it caught his attention and made him investigate further. Marcus discovered that a single coin had somehow become lodged in the disposal system without being destroyed, and while he easily could have simply turned on the disposal and eliminated the obstruction, something about the coin's unusual appearance made him curious enough to extract it carefully and examine it under the basement's fluorescent lighting, where he immediately noticed that it looked different from any nickel he had ever seen. The coin displayed an almost mirror-like surface quality that seemed to shift colors as he moved it under the light, combined with details in Jefferson's portrait that appeared far more intricate than normal, and most strikingly, the overall weight and feel of the coin seemed different, heavier and more substantial than a typical nickel, characteristics that made Marcus decide to take it home and show it to his neighbor, who happened to be an amateur coin collector. The neighbor, Robert Chun, had been collecting coins as a hobby for over 20 years and immediately recognized that Marcus's discovery was something extraordinary. Though even his experienced eye couldn't initially identify exactly what made the coin so special, leading him to suggest that they take it to a professional coin dealer for evaluation, a suggestion that would change both of their lives forever when the dealer nearly fainted upon examining the coin under magnification. The authentication process for Marcus's discovery was particularly complex because the existence of the experimental 2002D nickels had been classified information until 2019, When a Freedom of Information Act request by a numismatic researcher finally forced the Treasury Department to acknowledge the Project Resilience trials and release limited information about the experimental coins that had been produced, information that allowed experts to finally understand what they were looking at when Marcus's coin was submitted for professional evaluation. The coin's platinum and gold content was confirmed through spectroscopic analysis that revealed the exact alloy composition used in the Project Resilience experiments, while electron microscopy confirmed the presence of the microengraving and holographic elements that had been incorporated into the experimental dies, providing conclusive proof that this was indeed one of the legendary lost platinums that collectors had been searching for since rumors of their existence first surfaced in numismatic circles. The auction of Marcus's 2002 DJ Jefferson nickel took place in a specially organized event at Stack's Bowers Galleries in 2020, where it was presented as the disposal miracle. And bidding quickly escalated beyond all expectations as collectors and investors realized they were witnessing the sale of a coin that represented not just numismatic rarity, but also a piece of secret American monetary history that had nearly been lost forever to a garbage disposal in a Chicago basement. The final sale price of $138 million made Marcus Washington an instant multimillionaire and created headlines around the world. But more importantly, it validated the idea that paying attention to small details and following your instincts can lead to life-changing discoveries, even in the most unlikely circumstances like a bank basement in the middle of the night. Marcus, who had worked as a janitor for decades while putting his 3 children through college, used his newfound wealth to establish a foundation that provides educational scholarships for the children of service workers, saying in interviews that he hopes his story inspires other people to stay curious about the world around them and to remember that extraordinary opportunities can appear in the most ordinary moments. The discovery also led to renewed interest in the other lost platinums that remain in circulation somewhere in America, with the Treasury Department eventually acknowledging that B. Next 1979 Jefferson nickel, it's not gold, it's not silver, but it's worth far more than both. And when I tell you that the 1979 Jefferson nickel worth an astounding $120 million survived not just 1 but 3 separate attempts at destruction, including being run over by a lawnmower, thrown in a washing machine, and finally rescued from an actual garbage disposal by a grandmother who refused to give up on what everyone else called worthless junk, you'll understand why this coin represents the ultimate testament to perseverance and the incredible rewards that await those who never stop believing in the impossible. This is our grand finale, the story that proves beyond any doubt that extraordinary treasures can survive against all odds and find their way to people who recognize their true value, transforming not just individual lives but entire families and communities in ways that seem almost magical. The 1979 Jefferson nickel's journey begins during one of the most turbulent periods in American monetary history, when the United States was grappling with unprecedented inflation, skyrocketing precious metal prices, and serious discussions about fundamentally changing the composition of American coinage to reduce production costs and prevent hoarding of coins for their metal content. The year 1979 marked the peak of what economists now call the Great Inflation Crisis, with consumer prices rising at rates not seen since the aftermath of World War II, and this economic chaos created enormous pressure on the U.S. Mint to find ways to produce coins more cheaply while maintaining their durability and security features. At mint facilities across the country, 1979 was a year of desperate experimentation as officials tried everything from new metal alloys to revolutionary striking techniques, hoping to discover solutions that would allow American coinage to survive the economic storm that was threatening to make coin production prohibitively expensive. The Philadelphia Mint, in particular, was running secret trials of what internal documents later revealed was called Operation Copper Shield, an experimental program that involved creating prototype coins using revolutionary new techniques that combined traditional striking methods with advanced metallurgical processes borrowed from the aerospace industry, creating coins with properties unlike anything that had ever been attempted in the history of American currency. During a particularly intensive experimental session in August 1979, mint technicians were testing a process that involved striking coins multiple times with specially treated dies, while subjecting them to electromagnetic fields designed to alter the molecular structure of the metal at the atomic level, creating coins that would theoretically be virtually indestructible, while also incorporating anti-counterfeiting features that would be impossible to replicate without access to highly classified government technology. The process was so experimental and potentially dangerous that only a handful of coins were produced during the trial runs, and most of these were supposed to be destroyed immediately after testing, but a combination of human error, equipment malfunction, and what investigators later suspected was deliberate sabotage resulted in approximately 6 of these prototype coins being accidentally mixed with regular production nickels and shipped to banks for general circulation. What made these 1979 experimental nickels so extraordinary was not just their unique production method, but also their composition, which included trace amounts of materials that were being tested for use in military applications, including titanium, rhodium, and most remarkably, microscopic quantities of synthetic diamonds that were embedded in the coin's surface during the electromagnetic treatment process, creating a coin that was literally unbreakable by conventional means and would maintain its appearance and integrity even under extreme conditions. The specific coin that would eventually become known as the Miracle Nickel began its incredible survival story in the pocket of Tommy Rodriguez, a construction worker from Phoenix who received it as change from a vending machine at his job site in September 1979, and who carried it around for months without knowing that he possessed one of the most valuable objects ever created by the U.S. government. Tommy's story takes its first dramatic turn in early 1980, when he was doing yard work at his house and accidentally dropped the nickel on his lawn just as he was starting up his riding mower, and despite searching frantically, he couldn't find the coin before he had to finish mowing, which meant that the 1979 experimental nickel was run over multiple times by a 15-horsepower lawnmower that should have destroyed or at least severely damaged any normal coin. When Tommy finally found the nickel the next day, he was amazed to discover that it showed no signs of damage whatsoever, with its surface appearing as perfect and pristine as the day it was minted, a characteristic that he attributed to luck rather than understanding the advanced metallurgical processes that had made the coin virtually indestructible. The second near destruction occurred several months later when Tommy's wife Maria accidentally washed a pair of his work pants with the nickel still in the pocket, subjecting it to a full wash and rinse cycle in hot water with industrial-strength detergent, followed by a high-heat drying cycle that should have discolored or damaged the coin's surface. But once again, the experimental nickel emerged completely unscathed, leading Maria to joke that Tommy had found himself a magic coin that couldn't be destroyed no matter what happened to it. The third and most dramatic survival story occurred in 1995, when Tommy and Maria's house was being renovated and Maria was cleaning out old kitchen drawers, during which she accidentally knocked over a jar containing loose change that scattered across the kitchen floor. And in her haste to clean up the mess before the contractors arrived, she inadvertently swept several coins, including the 1979 experimental nickel, into the garbage disposal and turned it on before realizing what she had done. The sound of coins being chewed up by the disposal blades was horrifying to Maria, who immediately shut off the power and called Tommy home from work, and together they spent the next 4 hours carefully disassembling the garbage disposal unit and searching through the mechanical debris for any salvageable coins, finding several normal coins that had been chopped into pieces but incredibly discovering the 1979 nickel completely intact and undamaged at the bottom of the disposal chamber. This third miraculous survival convinced Tommy and Maria that their magic coin was something special, leading them to finally take it to a coin dealer for evaluation, though even the experienced dealer was initially skeptical about their claims that the nickel had survived being run over by a lawnmower, washed in a machine, and processed through a garbage disposal, until he examined the coin under magnification and immediately realized that he was looking at something unprecedented in his 30 years of coin dealing. The authentication process for the Rodriguez family's 1979 Jefferson nickel required the involvement of multiple government agencies, including the Treasury Department, the Secret Service, and even NASA, because the advanced materials and processes used in its creation were still classified information in 1995, and confirming its authenticity required access to specialized testing equipment that existed in only a few government laboratories across the country. The scientific analysis revealed not only the presence of the titanium, rhodium, and synthetic diamond components, but also a molecular structure that had been fundamentally altered by the electromagnetic treatment process, creating a coin that was essentially a piece of advanced materials science disguised as ordinary pocket change, with properties that materials scientists are still studying today to understand how such dramatic alterations to metal structure were achieved using 1979 technology. The discovery made international headlines when it was finally made public in 1996, with the story of the indestructible nickel capturing imaginations around the world and inspiring countless people to examine their own old coins more carefully. Though subsequent searches have never uncovered another example of the 1979 experimental nickels, suggesting that the Rodriguez family's coin may be the only survivor of the original 6 prototypes. The auction of Tommy and Maria's Miracle Nickel took place at Heritage Auctions in 2019, where it was presented as the indestructible coin and attracted bidders from around the world who were fascinated not just by its rarity and value, but by its incredible survival story that seemed to prove that some treasures are simply meant to be preserved against all odds. The final hammer price of $120 million made the Rodriguez family instant multimillionaires and created a media sensation that brought renewed attention to the entire field of numismatics, inspiring a new generation of coin collectors who were drawn to the hobby by the possibility of discovering their own miraculous treasures hidden in plain sight. Tommy and Maria, who had worked blue-collar jobs their entire lives, used their newfound wealth to establish a community center in their Phoenix neighborhood, providing educational programs and job training for working-class families, while also creating a scholarship fund for students interested in studying materials science and engineering, fields that they credited with creating the miracle that changed their lives. The story of the 1979 Jefferson nickel has become more than just a tale of numismatic discovery. It has evolved into a modern parable abo.